So hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today's episode is going to be all about how to set your irrigation up for the season ahead. So what I got here, I actually recently purchased a SumiSoaker. So if you've been following the channel from the very beginning, or even if you haven't, we've recently bought this place. We're on about 2 acres. They previously ran horses here, so there's a fair bit of weeds and everything. Anyways, I'm doing it section at a time, so we're working out the front to begin with, and then we'll move through the property. The biggest thing is there was no water out here, so I've put a temporary tap in. The eventual plan will be to put in-ground sprinklers in, but for now I got myself a SumiSoaker. It's 50 meters. I have no idea how far it's going to flow through and what the flow rate is or anything like that, but I guess we'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the SumiSoaker up for this area. So this is the top half where I'm going to film today. So I'm going to set the SumiSoaker up, and so that I know how long I need to run this for to get a set amount of water out, I'm going to be using these. So this is called a catch can. Now this is like a professional one, so you can see it's got its own little stand. It's pretty fancy, and it's got its own catchment area, and it's sort of like a little bit of a funnel, and it's also got graduated marks there telling you how many milliliters but also how many inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the SumiSoaker for a set amount of time and place these catch cans out. First of all, to make sure we've got uniform coverage. So it's for those of you who have got in-ground sprinklers, this is a perfect way to check that you don't have any dry spots or any dry areas that you might have to actually go and water by hand. So it's a great way to check on that. What I want to show you also is the poor man's catch can. So I thought this would be really interesting content if I got a professional grade catch can and I compared it to a good old 90-cent tuna tin from the shops. So all you got to do is go out and buy some tuna tins, I don't know, feed it to your cat or give it to someone that you don't like very much, and empty it, and then you have these. So the reason that I would use a tuna tin is you can see they're very level on the bottom, so you need that level surface on the bottom for measuring, and then it has that straight vertical walls as well. So they're obviously not going to be as accurate because it's not as great of an area, but I'm really interested to actually compare them and see what the results are. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to set this up. Typically, I think if you do it by the book, you're actually meant to put a ridiculous amount of catch cans out. So what I'm going to do to keep it fair, I'm going to put 12 of each out. So we'll start with these ones. You space them pretty evenly around your entire area. So I'm going to put 12 of these out. I'm going to run the sprinklers. I'll put it on a stopwatch. I'll run it, I think I'm going to go with 10 minutes because then you can always, you know, it's a nice number to multiply, a nice number to work with. Okay, so I've got the catch cans out. I've got some, you know, towards the road, towards the fence, some in the middle near the SumiSoaker, and then some sort of in between, just so I can get a really good reading. I've never used the SumiSoaker before, so I don't even know if it's going to throw far enough. That's 7 meters, the full width. and this is about a 35-meter strip. So let's go switch it on and see. So I wasn't sure how far it would throw. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but that's going on the road. Like, that's a good, that'd be close to 10 meters width, over 35-meter length. So that's, yeah, I'm pretty impressed. So that's been 10 minutes with that on. So all I'm going to do now is go around to each individual catch can and just record the volume of water that's in there. So very easy to do. I'm not going to bore you with that. There's graduated markings on the side of it. So that is literally all I'm doing, is reading it and recording it. So I'll do that quickly, then we'll get the tuna cans out and do the same thing. Run it for 10 minutes with the tuna tins out, and then measure those. So that 10 minutes has come and gone, so now I'm going to get a trusty little tape measure, and I'm simply going to measure. Hello, darling.
What's this?
Oh.
1 second water.
Okay, just wait 1 second, okay? So all I'm going to do is measure these tuna tins with this. I just want to see how many millimeters of water there is in there. So I'm just going to record that, and then I'll come back and tell you what all of those recordings or what those numbers actually mean for you. Alright, so had an interesting time trying to come out here and film the remainder of this video, but ultimately what I did after I guess getting all the results from the catch cans and the tuna tins is basically all you do is you take the average reading over that 10-minute period. So with my catch cans, and that's the one that I'm going to work with because I know it's more accurate, but you can use the tuna cans or tuna tins, whatever you want to call them. So ultimately my average was 1.3 millimeters in the catch can or in the tuna tin, close enough in the tuna tin, over that 10-minute period. So when you are actually watering your lawn, I've noticed that some people don't really have a gauge of what they're working towards. They're sort of like, that'll do. So ultimately what you want to do is you want to get around 25 millimeters of water on your lawn per week. That's just a general guide. There's so much more to watering your lawn than I think a lot of people probably realize, and it's actually really quite complex. But to simplify things, you go for around 25 mil a week. Less frequent, deeper waterings are the key to actually making your watering effective. So the whole point is so that water can go down and get into your soil down near the root zone. Okay, so the root zone's not right at the top, so shallow watering or frequent watering, that's not helping your roots develop at all. So that's the opposite of what you want to do. So that's why you want deeper waterings. So the rule of thumb is usually about 13 millimeters per watering cycle. So if you're going, okay, 13 millimeters, I want a total of 25, that's probably watering twice a week. I know for some people that's realistic, that's great. You've probably got in-ground irrigation, or you're happy to go out there and water your lawn twice a week. Some people, or people like me, maybe are a little time poor, and unless you've got an automated system, like the reality is I'm probably only going to water once a week until I've got a system in, and that's okay with me. So for me, just to get that 13 millimeters in that one watering cycle, remember I got 1.3 mils in 10 minutes, so that means I would need to water with the SumiSoaker this area for 100 minutes. So that's over an hour and a half. So it is quite substantial, and I think a lot of people run their sprinklers for about 15 minutes and think that they're doing a good job, and that's not really the case. The other thing to take into consideration, that 25 mil a week is an average over an entire year. So your grass is not going to need as much water in, say, winter as it is in summer. So that's something to take into consideration too. So perhaps in really dry spells, and if you've had a really hot weather, you might need to actually increase that watering. So water more than twice a week or give it more than 25 mils. And the same goes, like we've just recently had a huge rain event. So there's no point me watering right now. Sorry, I got distracted. So the key to watering your lawn effectively, less frequent waterings, so not every day. You want once or twice a week, and you want them to be deeper watering. So you want that water to get right down into the root zone. So minimum 13 millimeters per watering cycle, minimum. The other thing, don't water right in the middle of the day. You know, it's the hottest part of the day, evaporation's really, really high, you're sort of wasting it a bit. And the other thing is don't water, I think a lot of people want to water late afternoon because that's when they get home from work, or it's not so hot, so they think they're doing the right thing watering their lawns then. The only issue with that is the water will sort of sit on the leaf overnight, and then that's when you open yourself up to getting turf disease and things like that and fungal issues. So my tip would be water early morning, so like before 6 a.m. And that's especially good if you're, say, got like a footpath lawn or something like that. You can water before the walkers and joggers and stuff come out, unless you're a sick individual and you want to, you know, soak them. So those are my tips for watering your lawn. Have a look into calibrating your sprinkler setup. I also noticed that, and it makes a lot of sense, because of the gravity of the SumiSoaker up this end, closer to where I'd sort of tied it off, this was actually getting more water than up that end. I would say the pressure is greater up here as well. So that's something for me to consider when I'm watering with the SumiSoaker, is that half of the lawn is actually not getting as much as that half of the lawn. So I might need to hand water that. And you might find the same thing, even if your irrigation was installed by professionals, there might be some areas that are prone to dry spot. It just might not get as much water as the others. So it's a really good way of sort of testing your setup and checking out what you've got. I'm a really big believer, I know we haven't been in a drought for a little while, but I'm a really big believer of conserving water and making the most of the water that you've got. Another watering tip, another add-on would be make sure you use a wetting agent. So if you're going to put 13 millimeters down in one hit, just using that wetting agent means that it's there in the soil and it's going to really absorb that, and it'll limit the amount of runoff that you have as well. So just remember, naturally soil is hydrophobic. So if you're not using a soil wetter at all and you're putting those, you know, doing deep waterings thinking you're doing the right thing, you may be prone to a bit of runoff. And so all of the water may not be actually getting down into the soil. So make sure you use a soil wetter. Doesn't bother me which brand you use, just go out there, do a bit of research, or pair it with products that you're already happy with. Pretty much every supplier has a soil wetter. Actually, I will put some graphics up. I just like grass in tables. I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but you'll see the difference in the graph. The tuna tins, it was actually harder to read the tuna tins than the catch cans. Makes sense because tuna tins are for tuna, not calibrating irrigation, but they can be used. But you'll see there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the graph. You can see that the catch cans, I sort of had a higher value, higher reading in them than I got from the tuna tins. So that's because they're more accurate as well. And they've got a greater sort of catchment area and a nice little funnel. So that's sort of to be expected, but it was close enough for me to have an idea of how long I need to run my watering cycle. So if you got something out of this video, please make sure you give me a like. If you've got any questions about your own irrigation schedule, feel free to ask them in the comments. or jump onto the Lawn Care Australia group on Facebook. I'm happy to answer things there. I'm finally, I think, getting notifications for that, so sorry if you've asked something I haven't responded. I'm not being rude, I just haven't seen it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week on Lawn Care Australia.